slightly too large phones. You're listening to Techies Talking Tech Tonight, colloquially known as T4, and it is Tuesday, September 23rd, 2014. I am your host, Trey Comstock, and with me this week is Executive Editor Jimmy Principe.
Hello, Internet.
Hello, Jimmy. So this is Techies Talking Tech Tonight, the kind of companion show where we talk less about news and talk more about
whatever the fuck we want.
Whatever's going on. Although some of this is going to seem similar to the previous show because we have so I've been living with the iPhone 6 Plus for almost a week now. 5 days at least. And
you feel like you've had a good amount of hands-on time.
Yeah, no, I mean, when we did the Friday show, I was, I'd stood in line all day, and then I bought the phone. I played with it for a little while, went home, passed out for 2 hours, got up, ate some food, and then did a show. And so, I had like the briefest amount of time with it, and then I was into the grind of sleep, eat, prep, show. So I didn't really have a chance to live with it in any real sense. For instance, I didn't have to figure out how to rearrange my pockets, which is something I've had to learn. So when I'm not carrying, and also it's weird that my messenger bag that I usually wear is in the shop right now, getting repaired. So I'm having this weird learn how to live again moment, because it used to be that it was my iPhone 5 in a book, and so that was both my phone and my wallet, and my one phone and my wallet, and that easily slid into my back pocket. And then the Lumia and my headphones could go in one front pocket, and then my keys can go in the other front pocket. Well, I can't do that anymore. So one front pocket is the Lumia and my headphones. One front pocket is my iPhone 6 Plus. My keys tend to end up in my back pocket, maybe. And then I've several times...
Which sounds uncomfortable, if you want my honest opinion.
Pull them out of my pocket when I sit down. And then on several occasions, I have left home without my wallet.
Hey, I've got everything. I got my phone. I'm good.
So I need Apple Pay to get up and going because I just keep forgetting my wallet. So at one point, I drove 30 minutes into Chattanooga to go to a restaurant after I got off on Sunday, got to the parking lot of the restaurant, went to reach for my wallet and realized I didn't have my wallet, turned around, went home, went to Waffle House.
Excellent choice. Northern Georgia would be proud of you.
Yeah, so I'm running into weird situations, but that's mostly because my life was built around having a book to use. So in the iPhone 6 Plus, the biggest thing that I've noticed in the past few days is every time I look at an iPhone 4 now, or an iPhone 5, they appear comically small. So I was doing this.
I know why Android people have been making fun of Android 4s for years.
Right, and that's what's interesting about this is it's not so much that I didn't think that the screen size of the iPhone 5 was actually inherently inadequate. But I hadn't used a bigger phone. I mean, certainly I'd used tablets and laptops.
Right,
but I hadn't
played around with larger phones in stores, but nothing more than that. No long-term hands-on with them. Because they just weren't in the ecosystems that I play in. You kind of cover the Android side, and I cover Windows Phone and iOS. And so in both of those, I had top-of-the-line phones in both those ecosystems. Windows Phone now has its phablet, but it didn't when I was shopping for phones. Well, its phablet is ridiculous.
And its phablet's bigger than this one.
6 inches? I'm
6
sorry.
inches, and it looks this looks kind of funny in my hands. It's nothing to the Lumia 1520. I mean, that looks ridiculous. But now, I pick up an iPhone 5, and I'm like, this is a tiny screen. How did anyone live like this? It's like
bunch of savages.
It's like the video of modern teenagers encountering the NES for the first time. I'm like, how did you?
The Game Boy.
Or the Game Boy. How'd you deal with this? So I've noticed that although I still feel like it's too big for my hands, I do appreciate the screen size when I'm actually using it. But I've run into the problem of
So we constantly joke about the size of my hands. It's tiny. It's really not so much hands as I have basically no fingers. And so in order to reach the top of the screen, I have to kind of tip my hand forward.
See, but that's not just a uniquely you thing. There are other tech journalists that have reported that same thing.
Right. And what keeps happening to me is then that flips it to portrait mode, flips it to landscape mode. So it's like I go for the thing and then it's not there. So this has proven remarkably difficult to use while walking. Because I have to stop and use my other hand like it's my Palm Pilot from the late 90s.
Your little stylus, so
yeah,
you can,
Yeah, I mean, it's not as does, but I'm having so there's just, when I'm using it sitting down, I do a lot of stuff down here, and then periodically I have to bring this hand over like it's my 7-inch iPad. That being said, this has totally replaced, I had to find my 7-inch iPad because it's what does the sound effects for the shows. I didn't know where it was because I have not seen the need to use it. I did all of my show prep minus the writing on this for last week's show. This is where I've been reading Flipboard. This is when I'm sitting on the couch. This is what I pull out. This screen real estate makes a big difference. If you can get past the fact that it looks a little silly and has some ergonomics issues in how usable it actually is.
Well, my understanding is that with the rounding and the bezel that it gives it, that it makes it so that there's a 5. Well, especially not as much on the Plus, but especially on the 6, that it makes it so it's actually a physically larger phone than other Android phones of the same screen size.
Yeah, but the bezeling isn't crazy. I mean, it's just it's a little bit, and it's actually less bezeling at the bottom. I mean, the home button is physically smaller than on the 5. And there seems to be less or the same amount of space here and here, top and bottom, for the audio listeners, despite the fact that the screen's bigger. I mean, the bezeling's basically the same as it was. They haven't changed the bezeling because they're really trying to go for its just...
They want to look the same.
Look the same, because it's that same kind of longer aspect ratio with very little width, as we saw with the 4-inch screens on the 5. It's that same kind of shape. I like the way it looks. From the front, I still think it looks a little too much like the original Galaxy Note.
Or the Note 2. That's the one that's been the most compared to.
Yeah, from the front, I think it looks like a Note 2, especially because I got it in white, which is a very common color for the Note 2. I think the back is a big improvement. I like just the little bands of plastic and the kind of nice, solid metal. Obviously, the glass backs are gone, and that's a wonderful thing.
And thank the Lord.
And thank the Lord for that.
But you said slightly too big, so you think it's slightly too big?
I mean, I don't know. At this point, I wouldn't want to go to back. I couldn't go back to an iPhone 5. I think it is slightly too big in some ways to use while walking, for instance. But I think in the end, I appreciate the screen size because there's just more I can do on it, particularly reading and watching videos. That's a lot. That experience is a lot better on this phone than it was on my old phone, to the point where it's replaced my mini tablet. So to me, I think the trade-off's worth it. But everyone has to. That's an individual decision. I think for ergonomic simplicity, it is slightly too big. Especially for the smallness of my thumb, I just can't get my thumb to places. They have reachability mode, but that's a little kludgy to activate. It works, but it's a little kludgy to activate. So I do find myself just having to use two-hand operation. There's some glitches within the operating system that makes when you do flip it into landscape mode, which is a really great way to use it, because then it becomes like
where
a DS.
It rotates all the icons.
Yeah, I mean, and that works, but sometimes it gets jammed, and so I can't actually type. And I think that's just an operating system thing that needs a patch. But
Yeah, but Apple's pretty good at pushing patches early.
Yeah, and I like the dual pane on the text messaging and on the you can't really see it, but the dual pane on the text messaging and the email. The functional stuff around this, having the home button, having the on and off switch here is pretty smart, because who can reach the top of this phone? But really, who can reach the top of this phone?
No one.
No one can reach the top of the phone. So
Except for maybe Yao Ming.
yeah, Yao Ming could probably. I mean, basketball
on.
players. Shaq. Shaq needs a new. Shaq just actually probably just uses an iPad Mini, right? And that's his phone.
Doesn't matter. He still needs to advertise this for Apple.
Right. Then yeah, this is a perfectly normal phone. Whatever.
That way it looks normal sized in his hands.
Right. And it's certainly
slightly petite.
And it's certainly proven to be a huge launch for Apple. It's their, it's their biggest ever, despite the fact that China was not in play.
Right, it's something like 10 million iPhones.
10 million without China. The previous two launches were in the kind of 8-9 million range, were including China. This is without China, and yet they topped 10 million. So, I mean, this is huge because they did something smart. They released two top-end products, right? It's not like the 4.7 inch.
Right. Well, or the whole 5C play.
Right. So it's not the 5.
But this is kind of silly.
So yeah. So they gave up in the 5C play and go, that's not really where we work. And they went with this, multi-tier but still high-end strategy. I think in reality, if you already own a tablet that you're happy with, get the 4.7. If you don't already own a tablet...
Or not even a tablet that you're happy with, a tablet that you're accustomed to carrying around.
Right. Well, I will say, so I've been using this all day, constantly. I mean, this was a pretty heavy work day for me. I'm at 28% battery. It has been years since I've made it to this point in the day, end of my day. I have not plugged this in all day. I have yet to run this thing out of batteries. I mean, I charge it every night because that's just my habit. But I get to, this is the lowest I've seen this battery, and it's just below 30%. The battery life in this thing is for real. And as, in real world, this could probably run a day and a half for me. Now, it won't, because there's no reason not to just plug it in every night.
Right. And then that half day, you're sitting there going, well, crap, how do I charge this thing?
Well, theoretically, I'd be in my office or my studio at some point, right? But... unlikely. And then you're back to the Mophie juice pack, and that's
not a good solution.
Because I just carry at least like two of these around. It's like there's something wrong with phone batteries. Where like the whole tech press is just carrying around like 2 or 3 Mophie juice packs to make through the day on their iPhone 5s. I think this is the better of the two. I stand by my decision on battery life and usability. In terms of consuming content, or creating content if you're a crazy person. Really only if you're a crazy person.
Let's be clear, phones are not content creation devices.
Unless, I record things on it.
I would say, other than photos and videos, they're not content creation.
Audio. I mean, I have my, how I record my sermons. I hook a wired lapel mic into my iPhone. The Rode Smart Lav, and that's how I record sermons. So that kind of content creation, yes, but I'm not like banging out the next great American novel or mixing my band thing or editing my videos in iMovie on my iPhone. Now, the processor's powerful enough to do that. In some ways, it's as powerful as the current generation of consoles.
Right, it's a software problem more than it is a hardware.
It's actually a usability. Like, I have 64 gigabytes.
You wouldn't want to do it?
Well, I mean, you could do it, but like this is 64
Just do
gigabytes.
it on the cloud, Trey.
This is a cloud. Yeah, great video editing.
You just need Azure.
Yeah, someday. I mean, that's more an internet speed issue. I mean, you could use Azure, OneDrive as your storage drive for a video editing for a video project. But the problem isn't the amount of storage available now. 1 terabyte. I mean, this is my work drive for video editing, and it's 1 terabyte. But it's a Thunderbolt drive. It's a 1 terabyte Thunderbolt drive, and that's going to have enough for 2 or 3 projects for me. So my OneDrive theoretically has the storage, but what it doesn't have is the speed. So I can't deal with 25 megabits per second. Right? Like that's not a function.
Like
I need like a gig, like 3 gigs a second, so that I can actually like work at a reasonable pace. So that's a speed of internet issue, because you can do network attached storage, assuming you're actually getting gigabit Ethernet, which very seldom works. So there are places where hardwired still matters versus the cloud. But for a lot of stuff, Office 365, for instance, there's a lot of stuff where the cloud makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So that's something actually you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, so speaking of Office 365, I actually had a pretty good kind of experience using it this week in crossing over from my work to my personal computer and back. So we have a corporate Office 2013 license, and so I can actually get
Office. So is Office 365 for business?
That's not been made clear to me, but there is a way that I can get cheap Office through my company, and I believe that was specifically for Office 365. But I pay for Office 365 separately as an individual user on a month-to-month basis. It was a stopgap that I did about 2 months ago for a project I needed. I had a computer that didn't have Office on it, and so I bought Office 365 for that month. Because $10 is cheaper than $100.
Sure.
And just used some of the Office web tools and things like that. But this was really the first project that I decided to really use the Office web tools to their fullest extent, because I'm in the middle of swapping over from one set of computers to another in my company. And I didn't want to store anything locally because I wasn't sure when this changeover would happen for this presentation I was doing today. And so what I ended up doing was I created the presentation in PowerPoint Online and pulled in a template and kind of got editing and got setting up my stuff. And, PowerPoint Online, for people that haven't used it, it's not as powerful, of course, as the desktop version.
Yeah, but most people aren't actually using the powerful aspects of PowerPoint.
I mean, I use a lot of it. I get pretty in there with it. But what I did was I kept doing actually go ahead and take this PowerPoint and open it on in PowerPoint on this computer, because
Interesting.
I was able to take my Office web app, which was associated with my personal account, and it just tell my work computer just to open it. And it said, okay, and it opened it.
Yeah.
Then, I mean, part of it is I think I already have OneDrive installed on there, but it put it in a temporary folder somewhere buried in the root structure.
It doesn't actually have to do with OneDrive being installed. So I do that at work. I work at Emory. Emory University has upgraded everything to Office 2013 as well. So I'm doing a major research project having to do with federal funding of healthcare, where I'm analyzing federal budgets. And so I have all of that saved in my OneDrive, and then I have my working document saved in OneDrive. And so what I do is I just open up Office 2013, I log into my OneDrive just in the web browser, click it, open in Office. It opens up in Office 2013, I log in as me, and all of the changes are instantly synced to OneDrive in the cloud. So I don't even have to now bring my own laptop to work on this project. I can just sit down at one of the consoles in the lab, log in, and everything I need's right there. And it works great. Now, it took a little doing, because it's like I have these PDF image files of like the 1930 budget. So it was a scanned copy of 1,000 pages. That's like 100 megabyte document. So it took some doing to get it uploaded. I just did it on Emory's network, and it didn't take all that long. But once it's up there, and obviously my Word doc is tiny. And so I just download and open the budget I need, have that open in one pane. The other pane's this Office doc that's instantly syncing using the Office 365 stuff. And that has been phenomenal. I'm no longer... And so all of my current projects for school and for work and for church are all now in my OneDrive, because I have a terabyte. And so I'm no longer... very rarely am I in that document hunt now. It's now just everything syncs. And it's fantastic.
And what I found was really the best is, so I still don't have full Office on the computer, on my laptop. I still haven't installed it. I have access to it. It's more of a laziness thing than anything else. But when I got home last night, I was just working on filling in. I already set up all the sheets and everything, or all the slides and everything, and I was just putting in content on each of the slides while watching House on Netflix. And so I was just going through online and adding sheets and adding content and doing kind of what I needed to do. And it was a very seamless experience. Then I saved it, and when I got to work this morning, I just reopened it from the web app and said, yeah, I need this file again. And said, oh, okay. And it just opened up the most recent file, had all the changes I had made. And so that's where, like, now I really start to see firsthand, not just as a kind of, oh yeah, that's a good idea, this mobile first, cloud first thing.
But
the fact that it's Azure that makes that such a seamless experience.
This is what I've been on about for a year.
I know. Well, but more in the sense that the fact that it's not something you have to, like, the fact that Office 365 just it does its thing.
Yeah.
You don't have to know that where it's actually putting that file is on OneDrive. You don't have to know that OneDrive is supported by Azure.
Right. You don't
yeah. I mean, we've all used Dropbox for years. We've all used a million. We've all tried a million other storage solutions, and we all go back to Dropbox because Dropbox is the least hassle. Where you have a folder that is your Dropbox folder, and everything that goes into that folder gets synchronized across all of your devices with Dropbox.
Assuming all you need is 2 gigs or whatever it is now. But up until very recently, you only got 2 gigs. And I would look at that. I would look at 2 gigs and I would laugh. Not because, I mean, obviously
that's a flash drive.
My flash drive is 64 gigabytes. That's not a flash drive. My smallest flash drive I even use is 16 gig. And I understand, like, I have weird storage requirements. But even, like, thinking about MP3 versions of sermons, which I have to sync to Dropbox because it's the only thing that stupid rogue software that I use.
50 megabytes or
50
something?
megabytes. I have to start thinking about managing my Dropbox. When I was teaching and we would need like PDFs of lesson plans, I would regularly max out my Dropbox. And so that's why I moved away from it and moved to PogoPlug and now to OneDrive. Because PogoPlug, I could literally just drop in my own hard drive, and I had 386 gigabytes in the cloud, and that was great. And I've been using that for 4 years, and now I'm migrating to OneDrive because now it's now off-prem. It's actually in the cloud rather than giving me access to an on-prem drive in the cloud. My files are now backed up in a secure way. Not secure until, I guess, the NSA can get to them. Fine.
No, secure in the sense of data loss.
Secure against data loss. And so that's why I'm moving to OneDrive, because I'm no longer managing that storage. Now, if OneDrive goes down, great. But if OneDrive, like, that's core to Microsoft's business. That is Azure.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's the same technology that powers iCloud.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But you look at iCloud, you look at all these other services, they do not work as seamlessly.
iCloud might now. Once we get the iCloud Drive integration with OS X Yosemite. That's where we don't really know how iCloud Drive works. Basically, what OneDrive does is it gives you all the software benefits of a Chromebook with real power behind it. So you can just log in, and there's everything, no matter where you go. And if you have an Office 365 subscription, you can even temporarily download the desktop clients of Office 365 to whatever computer you're using, assuming you have an install left, and use the full desktop versions of these.
Deauthorize all of them when you leave.
And deauthorize all of them when you leave. I mean, there's a lot that goes on, and to me, it's a lot more powerful than Google Docs. A lot of people in our generation, the millennials, why do you need that? You just use Google Docs. Are you kidding me?
Well,
you want to use Google Sheets?
So Google Docs is good for Word equivalent.
Sure.
And it's crap for everything else.
It's good if you need to type words into a thing, in that it's a step up from everyone. Let's all edit the draft of this email.
Oh, God, yeah.
Right, I mean, sure, it's a step up from that. And what they did is they got the collaboration thing right long before Office did. And so they just became a name brand. But they're only really... I mean, I've done presentations in them, and I have hated the results. Because we don't need it. We just use Google Docs. Guys, we're on a limited internet situation in Paraguay. We're doing this all off of 3G internet, and you want to tell me that we're going to be able to sit here and we're going to be able to use Google Doc? Are you crazy?
Well, yeah, but you have a unique situation there. Most of these college students are sitting on college campuses where they have ridiculous internet.
Well, and that's where the thinking came from. But in a low resource setting, I was like, guys, you know, that is another thing that's now on my checklist for teams is either buy Office or I'll give you Office, but you need Office. We're not having this dance.
Well, that's what I like about Office 365 is the fact that if I need Office on the machine and I need to take this file that's actually located in OneDrive and I want to work on it. So, for example, one of the dumb things you can't change in the web app is by default, all the slides in the template I was using were 16 by 9. Sure. I could not change the aspect ratio. Well, the projector that we were using is 4 by 3. Yeah. And so I had to go in and I pulled it back into PowerPoint to change that setting and then pushed it back up.
Sure. And that all works pretty seamlessly. To the point where in Windows 8, you stop thinking about what's where. So in Windows 8, OneDrive's just a folder.
You just put it in OneDrive.
It's just the OneDrive folder, just like the Documents folder. And it's actually the default setting of storage for everything within Windows 8. And so all of my, all of the stuff that I'm actively working on that aren't video, obviously that aren't video projects, because video projects still live here because I need high-speed storage on a MacBook Pro.
You tried downloading that off the internet every time you need to edit it.
Or it's cold storage on this PC. That's where the video and media projects live. But in the other part of my life, where I am a scholar and where I am a pastor, all of that stuff's in OneDrive. My notes through OneNote sync to OneDrive very seamlessly, available on all of the devices I could possibly buy, including, by the way, if you get an Amazon tablet, which they just announced a whole new slew of. Yeah, there's OneNote for Amazon.
I didn't know that.
For the Amazon ecosystem. I mean, they really are, this is where... This is the future. We keep talking about this is the future of Microsoft. And I think this is a really interesting future where it's the cloud that works for real productivity. Not for your occasional student project, but like powerful, really powerful tools that exploit what the cloud can actually do. It's not just solving the collaboration problem. It's giving you access to full power desktop tools that also can work as lightly powered web tools with the full collaboration and real syncing in a hard drive that you can manage.
And I think it's really that last bit. It's the real syncing in the hard drive
you can
manage.
Right.
Because
that's what iCloud didn't used to be.
Well, and that's what Google Docs is not. Right. You can't do anything with that.
Right.
It's a junk data file. And so unless you specifically download it as, well, whatever it is, either an Excel file or a PowerPoint or a Word or whatever it happens to be.
Well, because this is a cloud architecture built by someone who designed operating systems, not a cloud architecture by someone who designed a web browser, right? So Google thinks in terms of Chrome. Microsoft thinks in terms of Windows 98. Now, often to their detriment, but in this case, it's a lot more positive.
In this case, they picked the right one.
I mean, they picked the right one. Now, I will tell you, since Emory has switched over to Office 2013, I keep running into people who just like, how do I do this? It's like, oh God, Microsoft, what? Like, you added so much beautiful functionality and the design looks better. The UI changed enough that people don't know how to use it.
Look, you can't fix dumb.
But these are really smart people.
Yeah, but people, like...
These are not practical people.
This is one of those, like, it's going to change people.
Yeah?
You have not had a UI change to Windows since Windows 2000 and, like, from Windows 2003 to Windows 2007.
Maybe. Yeah, I mean, with the ribbon, and most people... Yeah, no. 07
even... No, 07 was a slight UI change.
Was slight
03 was also kind of that same ribbon kind of setup.
I mean, you got the toolbar stuff, but everyone got pretty used to... Because there wasn't... there wasn't much change between 98 and 2000.
No.
There was a definite visual UI change between 2000 and 03, because 03 was what came out while I was in high school. And I could look and go, that's 03. And then '07 was a bump, and then 2010 was the big leap to the ribbon, and then 2013 is just more is more on the back end integration, something like that.
Right, but there's definitely a large amount of visual change in 2013, especially in certain files, and I'm surprised we haven't had problems with it in my company because people are curmudgeon-y.
Well, I mean, we've talked about this a little bit before, but it's the pace of change. If you think about,
people.
Danny O'Dwyer talked about this on his show, The Point, in thinking about gaming. So the amount of change so Danny's my age, 28, and so the amount of change we've seen in our lifetimes as gamers is huge. My first game console that I owned was a Nintendo Game Boy. Now this is my handheld console. It's an iPhone 6 Plus. And that is just in a span from, I got my Game Boy in 1994. Now I realize it came out long before that, but I got it in 94. And so it's now 2014. So 20 years for me, going from the Game Gear Game Boy era to the iPhone 6 Plus and the Nintendo 3DS. That's a tremendous amount of change. And
and the craziness that is the Ouya and things like that are trying to bring that kind of gaming to your television.
Right. And so we've witnessed a lot of change. Now, scale that back. Think about the amount of change someone who grew up in the 70s has seen, where computers were rooms in buildings, mainframes and stuff. Right. And then, like, the PC was a big deal, and that was the 80s. It was really the kind of the PC revolution and the original Macintosh, to where we are now, where, again, I mean, this would count as a supercomputer in 1980. By a long shot. So, I feel
it's that 64-bit.
Yeah, it's that 64-bit thing. I feel more empathy towards folks who have a hard time with this because it's hard. I mean, we cover this, but I even see millennials who are like, "Why?"
Oh no, millennials are struggling with it too. I mean, it's not.
Yeah,
it's not just like the metaphorical old people. It's everybody. Everybody is struggling with the UI change.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why everyone protests Facebook. But on that note, we should probably get out of here. Thank you so much for joining us on Techies Talking Tech tonight. If you have any feedback for us, podcast at techslastcall.com, facebook.com/techslastcall,
Pinterest.com
/techslastcall, or at techslastcall on the Twitters. Good night.